Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I'm back with another video for Simon Says Stamp. Today we're going to be using some My Favorite Things stamp sets. This is the Pure Innocence Ice Skater and the Polar Bear Pals from My Favorite Things. I'm going to be doing my stamping in intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp because it's Copic safe, and we're going to be doing lots of Copic coloring. I will warn you, this video is super long. Unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is in my situation with coloring and doing backgrounds and stuff. It just has a tendency to be longer. Currently, I have a giveaway, a blog candy giveaway going on my blog, so please look for that in the link below if you're watching on YouTube. And I'm doing a giveaway because I want your opinion on whether or not you would like one long video or two shorter videos. That would be like maybe the background and then the characters or something like that. So if it's before December 4th of 2016, please head over to the blog and leave me a comment to let me know what you think. And then I'll be doing that giveaway. Just some cute little sets and some, Spectrum Noir sparkle markers. So anyway, I am stamping and masking, which is per my usual because I'm doing a one-layer card. I'm using full stick post-it notes for my characters, but I really wanted to create it like a snowy background. So here I just have regular copy paper and I have ripped it. You need both pieces. You're going to just use, I use Tombow Mono multi glue because it dries repositionable. And so I'll put it on the edge and just kind of smear it around with my finger. And then I'll let it dry so that it's completely repositionable. It's not going to rip my paper. If I feel like it's too sticky, I tap it with my fingers or put it on the palm of my hands to remove some of that stick. But then I'm trying to get this lined up and I didn't realize I had to turn the wrong way so that I know which way that it's supposed to go on the card. This white part that I'm putting down now is actually going to be my snow. So the sky will be above it, and then the pond that they're ice skating on will be below it. For both of these, I'm going to be using Tumbled Glass and Salty Ocean because I'm going to be doing so much Copic coloring over the pond. This is just going to give me like a good base, and for the sky it'll just be the Distress ink. So I'm just going to start on my mask so I don't get any weird blotches or anything like that, and just rub it until I'm happy with the color, and then I'm going to do the same thing below the mask into the pond. And again, same thing with the Salty Ocean, and I'm just going to keep applying that until I'm happy with the intensity of the color. I maybe went a little too light with the sky. You can see it on the video, but in the final photographs, it's almost like not even there. But I assure you there's blue back there. For the snow, and when I take this off, you're going to be like, this just looks like a weird white stripe in the middle of a blue card. Just hang with me, all right? We're going to do some things. It's going to look like a scene by the time we're done. Have faith. So I'm going to put the second piece in place, and sometimes when you're working with distress inks, if they're still wet, these don't want to stick. So just let it dry a little bit or push it down really well. Sometimes I just hold it in the beginning, and then by the time it's all said and done, it is sticking. But I'm using Shaded Lilac. That's just, if you've seen any of my videos lately, I'm hitting the snow scenes pretty hard. Even though in Ohio we actually have only had 2 snow days so far. But so I did that just to add in some of the shading, and now I'm going to remove the rest of the mask so we can go ahead and head into the Copic coloring. Again, this still looks like a weird stripe with all of these flat images, but, by the time we're done, it'll be good to go. In order to help build up that scene, I wanted to add in some trees, and these are just super easy trees because there wouldn't be any leaves on them. It's the middle of winter. So I just used my lightest color, dropped some trees down, drew in some branches. I'm really not being particular about the way that they look or where the branches are going. I just wanted something that was going to fill that up and make it look like it was land. So once I was happy with the amount of trees that I had, I'm going to go back in. I use my lightest color. This is going to be my mid-tone, and I'm just adding a stripe of this to the left-hand side and underneath the branches. This is just going to kind of help give it some dimension. I didn't want to draw full-blown trees, first of all, because I'm not an illustrator, and they probably wouldn't be very good. But this will be enough to just kind of give it some interest, and then this is the darkest color, and I'm doing the same thing, where I'm just adding some shadows to the left-hand side and underneath the tree branches to kind of just bulk up that dimension, even though there isn't really a lot of volume to the trees. For the snow part of it, I'm using a C1, a C3, and a BV, and that BV is just going to tie in that shaded lilac that I used for the Distress ink. I'm drawing in just like some little mounds of snow to kind of break up that large white area. And then I'm also going to add a couple of little shadows where it would be hanging over the pond. So with this, you can see we're starting to get what looks like some woods or land ashore. When you're shading the hills that we're adding in, you want to add all of your shading behind your line, so on top of it, because the top of the snow mound would be the lightest. The shadows would be behind it, and then of course adding in a little bit of shadows where the trees are going into the snow. Here is where probably most of the time is spent. Because it's a large area, I made my pond very large. These stamps were just designed for a perspective card. They really were. I didn't have to edit any of their sizes. The girl was bigger than the first bear, and the second bear was smaller than the other one, so it just really lent itself well to doing a scene card with good perspective. So here I'm just doing, this is how I would normally color water in the summer. So if I was doing like a beach scene or whatever, this is how I would do it. The farther away it is, the darker it is, the more, the closer it is to the front of the card, the lighter it is. So I'm using my darkest colors in the back, and then just using strokes, feathering strokes. So really just straight lines. And I'm getting less and less as I get out further away from the shore. And like I said, this is how I would color water. And so that's how I kind of was doing my pond. But you'll see by the time that we're done with all of the greens, the blue greens, it looks like they're they're Jesus, like they're walking on water. That's what it looks like. So we're going to try to do some things to make that look more pond-like, like frozen water versus, like an actual lake or ocean that is thawed. So again, I'm adding in a couple of shadows underneath where she's standing. I'm going to go back in and add some shadows into where the bear is, because I kind of missed that while I was doing all of my little line work. And, if you really wanted to get just crazy kind of fun with it, you could add their shadows onto the ice. I chose not to do that, just where they were touching. I decided to give them a little bit of shadow. I'm going to take my lightest color, which is the BG11, and I'm going to color in the entire thing, the whole thing. This is going to help blend all of those lines together and start to make it look more like a frozen pond. So just going to keep swiping on that color, and I'm going to leave part of the lake. I don't even know what we're calling it. It's going to be a lake. That's what I'm calling it now. I'm going to leave part of it just a little bit white at the front in order to really seal in the frozen look. I'm going to go over the whole thing with a C1. When you see frozen lakes, ponds, whatever, they have kind of a gray, muted, hazy appearance. That's how, when it's ice, that's how frozen, it looks. And so I wanted to bring that in. This is going to further blend those colors. Also, I don't know if you've ever been ice skating. I've only been a handful of times because, well, quite frankly, I'm just not very good at it. But there are always white lines in the ice from people skating and doing turns and tricks and all of those things. So I'm just drawing in some white lines and some loops and curves just to kind of reinforce that idea that it is a frozen pond. It's hard to see in the video. It's even harder to see in the actual photograph, but in real life, whoever gets this card will be able to see those details quite well. I chose to do some warmer browns for my bears. I know a ton of people are coloring these cute little polar bears for my favorite things white. I just felt like my scene was so white already that I wanted to just kind of infuse it with a little bit of color. So that's why I chose to do them brown, just like a good neutral and bringing in some additional colors. So I'm adding in, I colored him all with my lightest color, and then I'm just going to go ahead and add in the shading, which would be like where his, the left side of his body, because I always color everything if my light source was in the top right. Underneath his scarf, underneath his arm, underneath his little pot belly there, where his scarf's up over his face, those would all be areas that would be shaded. In order to emphasize his little pot belly, I'm going to kind of flick the color up, like continue the round line that was already drawn there to just emphasize, just just how chubby he is. They're super cute. But that's just really going to kind of bring that out and lengthen those shadows. Also behind his nose, because that's just where, if they have a snout, that would be darker. The nose part that sticks out would be lighter. So my darkest color, I'm really just adding in the darkest areas, and then we're just going to go back through super quick and kind of blend everything out. I was really happy with the way that they came out. I've never used My Favorite Things stamp sets before. That was one of the companies that I knew was out there and just had never picked them up. And so I'd gotten an email and somebody had suggested that I try them. And then when I went and spent a weekend like a month or two ago with my girlfriends, and these polar bears were everywhere. Everybody was using the polar bears, and they are so adorable. And so I think I found my first set where I was just like, I really need to get those because they're so cute. And then the little Pure Innocence girl, that's so like just iconic My Favorite Things. That's their girl. When you see it, you know it's My Favorite Things. And so I wanted to kind of incorporate her into my first card as well. Moving on to this other bear, I'm doing the same thing with the lightest color. I'm adding in my shadows, and we're just going to build from there. Like I said, my light source would be in the top right, so underneath his belly, that left-hand side of his face would all be darker, and then where his hand is behind his back, that would all be darker as well. So just using light hand, tip of the marker, small flicking motions. You can in these larger areas, like his body is a much larger area. You don't have to use such a light hand. You can press a little harder because we are putting down a lot of color. We have to. It's a large area to color. For my darkest color, I'm just adding it where the shadows would be the darkest. So where his arm is behind his back, underneath of that belly there, and then where his little booty covers up his leg. I just love that little butt. It's so cute. And then we're just going to go back through and kind of blend all of that out. I used the same thing where I extended the shadow line for his thigh and his belly to give it some separation that I did with the other bear for his little pot belly. Here I just kind of did the same thing in order to get some separation and really just bring that line up. Because it's such a large area, sometimes you can have some difficulty blending. Once I had put the lightest color on, I felt like the mid-tones really didn't blend. So I just went back in with the E55. Don't be afraid to just keep working your image. As long as your paper isn't pilling and it isn't oversaturated and getting that mottled look, then it's fine. You can keep kind of toying around with it until you're happy with the way it looks. And then I finally was happy with the way that it looked. So just reinforcing those shadows, since my coloring over them kind of muted them down a little bit. I'm going to use the same browns for her hair. And I have to tell you, these little girls, their hair has always terrified me. Because it's just stripes. It's just lines of hair. And so it always made me really nervous to color because I was like, I don't even know what to do with that. I decided that I was going to take the approach of, I was just going to color it like I color any other hair. That's what I was going to do. And then I was just going to be a little heavy-handed on that part in order to really make it dark and look like that's how it should be shaded. So I'm doing the shading from the crown of her head and then also from the ends of her hair, leaving the highlight on the rounded area. Since my light source is in the top right, the left-hand side of her head is going to be darker. The highlight isn't going to be as strong. So when I was coloring, I made sure to include just a little bit more darks there. And then when I did the lightest color, I didn't really leave any white like I'm going to on the right-hand side. So just, make sure that those are blended, but the main highlight should be on the right-hand side. Moving on, we're going to do her skin tone. This is basically my go-to combination for skin. I was a little apprehensive because her hair doesn't really hang in her face. So I was like, where am I going to put these shadows? Like, how am I going to make it so it's not just one color? And because of the way that her head is tilted, I knew the right-hand side would have a little bit of shadows from the hair that is in her face. And the right-hand side would be just a little bit darker because it would be further away from the light source. So that's just kind of how I approached it. With her legs as well, the underneath of her skirt and then the left-hand side of her legs, because they are further away from the light source, those would be darker. I also wanted to give her just a little bit of shape. So I just put in 2 little curved lines for her kneecaps. And so normally when your leg is extended, you can't see the kneecap. But because hers isn't fully extended, it's only partially, I still felt like you would be able to see it. So I went ahead and drew those in, and then just adding in those shadows. For the little kneecaps, you want to make sure that above the line stays light, because that's the part that would be sticking out. So you want to make sure that that is the lightest area, where underneath you just want that little line of shadow, because it wouldn't cast a shadow, her kneecap wouldn't cast a shadow down her entire shin. So going over everything with my lightest color. And then obviously she's outside, she's playing with her buddies. She would have, just a little bit of a pink cheek for being outside. I kind of toyed around with what I wanted to do with her sweater. I just felt like it looked a little plain. Ultimately, I decided I was just going to take a Copic Safe pen and draw a little heart on there to give it some interest, because I'm always about adding my own details and kind of making images my own. And then I did, it took me a long time to decide on the colors that I wanted to use. You heard me say earlier that I made the bears brown because I felt like everything was just really white, and I wanted it to, I like bright colors. I just do. I think that they are fun and they're a good time, and so I wanted to include some bright colors into the card. I thought that these cards would play well with all of that teal or blue-green that we have going on in the pond. So because her arm's behind her back and her elbow is bent, there would be shadows there. And then in order just to keep some separation from her arm and her sweater, I kind of moved my shadows in a little bit. I've heard Sandy Allnack refer to this as bounced light. I was just trying to get some separation between the arm. So if that means I'm creating quote unquote bounced light, I'm good with that. Like, we'll call it whatever it needs to be called. I just didn't want everything to be super dark on that side of her sweater. So moving along, just kind of blending everything out, and then the highlight for the lightest color will really only be on the right hand side of her socks and then her sweater as well. I'm going to use these same green markers because you want everything to tie together. You want it to be a flow. So I'm going to use the same green markers to color the scarf of the bear in the back. I did a ton of coloring on these scarves, but I'm not going to show you all of it because this video is already like ridiculous. But I did them all the same way. So I colored the bottom of the scarf where it wraps around his neck. There's a little divot, so that area would be darker. And then where it's falling behind him, like the shadows would be closest to his body. I colored all of the scarves that way. So when we get to those and they just suddenly appear, don't be surprised. That's how I did it. I picked some reds to do her little heart. And then, again, the light source is coming from the right-hand side. So even though it's one sweater, there would still be some shadows on her end. Or you could just say it was like a little gradient heart that was on her sweater. Either way, I wanted it to have some bold color. So I'm good with whichever way you want to look at it. And then I also did her little ice skates red. Again, just trying to keep the colors tied in together, trying to work and what is the word is eluding me? The triangle, visual triangle. Hello, congratulations, Kelly, you remembered a technical term for design. So I was trying to work in the visual triangle. I knew that there was going to be some red in the other scarves and, possibly the other one's ice skates. So just trying to work in that area. Again, the darkest side is going to be on the left and to the bottom. So the highlight portion should be where her laces and her toe are. You probably don't have to use 4 colors. Like, let's be honest, these are some smaller images, especially for the shoes, but old habits die hard, and that's just what I'm used to using. But I use that same red for this bear's scarf, and then I'm going to bring in some purple. So like I said, I really toyed with the color combination, and I loved the green and red, and my natural inclination is to go to yellow because it's a very traditional Christmas colors. But I just thought the purple would be so fun. I love purple and red together, I love purple and teal together, and I love purple and lime green together. So I just thought that would be a way to just kind of bring in something, you know, a little bit more interesting. So for her scarf, everything would be darker on the left hand side, and actually I colored her scarf wrong. Like, totally gonna take ownership. The darkest part of her scarf should have been that divot, because it clearly looks like it's a valley and not a peak. That's not the way I colored it. I colored it as if it was flying out in front of her and not flying behind her. So, I mean, it doesn't look terrible, and if I hadn't pointed it out, nobody would probably even notice, but I own my mistakes. And so I'm letting you know, if you color that, maybe try making the valley of the scarf the darkest part and not the edges. To do her skirt and to get some good dimension, you're just going to do lines of color across each panel, and then underneath her sweater there would also be some shading. You want to do the lines because the highlight is going to be the center of the pleat that sticks out. So the darkest color should be inside the pleat that's settled in. And then I did add just a little bit of dark on the left hand side, but I didn't carry it all the way across her whole sweater. And then you're just going to work back out using the same colors and filling in that white space. I colored in her whole, the first pleat, I colored that all in with the second darkest color because it would be darker over there. And then I'm going to fill in the rest with what's left over with the lightest color. I used grays for their little ice skates. Again, the highlight will be on the tip of the blade where that comes up, except for this bear, because his foot is behind him and it's up, the highlight's actually going to be along the length of the ice skate, along the blade, and the front will be shadowed. So when you're coloring using a light source, you know, you should be paying attention to how it's going to hit something. If you need assistance with that, if that's hard for you to visualize, it's no problem. Just get a lamp and put it where you want your light source to be, and then lay an object down so that you can see how those shadows are flowing. Of course, all about the details always, so I added some white polka dots with a white gel pen to her skirt and her scarf. I also added it to her laces to really give them some highlight. I added some stripes to his scarf and put a little highlight on the blades. Clear Wink Castella on her sweater. And then also just kind of haphazardly striped throughout the pond because I love all the sparkle. And I don't think ponds should be without sparkle. And then I'm going to use a white clear, or a white Wink of Stella. I'm so used to saying clear. It's white, yo. For the snow. And they do look different. The clear and the white do look considerably different. For the sentiment, I'm going to be stamping in black Simon Says stamp. It's a good crisp ink. And then I'm just going to stamp right over my scene, and it says the best times are spent with best friends. And I just thought that that was so fitting with their little ice skating party that they were having. So that's the entire card. Thanks for hanging in there because I know it's long. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.